Gordon the Big Engine is well known for flying the express on the island of Sodor, but his journeys are not always without incident. This is the story of a pair of those journeys from the summer of 1984. Any engine that has traveled through Misty Valley will tell you just how valuable the service that Cyril the Fogman provided was, but eventually even he had to retire. The engines and crews were saddened by this, but they were happy to find out that his grandson, whom was named after him, was hired to work as a signalman at Elsbridge. Young Cyril, a man in his early 20s, was cheerful and hard-working. The VAT controller had decided to test the young man by having him take on the early morning shift. The post train was running several hours late, as Henry had broken down in the siding and had been trapped by frozen points on the quayside. As such, in the early hours of the morning, Edward was steamed up and brought to the docks. As it was only empty stock, Edward moved Henry onto a different siding, then was coupled to the mail train to take it back to Vickerstown. Percy had already passed along the branch line by the time Cyril had gone on duty. He had already been notified that Edward would be coming through, and he set the signals. He smiled when Edward whistled "Good luck" as he passed by on the mail line with his empty mail vans. The only thing that happened during the next several hours was Percy returning to Teignmouth on the branch line light engine. The Farquhar Quarry had been very busy that summer, as they received several very large orders of stone. As such, Percy was bringing an unscheduled extra of stone trucks up from the harbor that morning. Cyril was notified that Percy was coming through from the main line onto the branch due to a faulty signal at Dryaw just 10 minutes before the express was due. To the signalman, it seemed like the extra would be coming through first, so he set the switches for the main line to the branch line via the branch line platform. To Cyril's surprise, Gordon arrived first. "What on earth?" he shouted as he rushed through the station. The driver acted quickly and brought Gordon to a stop well before he reached the bridge over the River Els. The driver and fireman breathed a sigh of relief, but Gordon didn't. The big engine was far from happy with the mix-up. The driver opened the reverser, and Gordon slowly backed up towards Elsbridge Station. When he returned, the station master walked up to him. "Is everyone all right?" he asked calmly. "All right enough," Gordon huffed. "What on earth happened?" he asked in an annoyed tone. The station master answered Gordon calmly. "It's the signalman's first day, and he was just notified about Percy's unscheduled extra for the quarry a few minutes ago. So he set the points for Percy as he assumed he would be arriving first." "Clearly," Gordon said and let off steam loudly, "that isn't the case." Just then, the clanking of a switch and Percy's whistle could be heard. Percy puffed in and stopped on the main line platform adjacent to where Gordon was. "I can see that there's a problem, Gordon. There's no need to yell so loudly," Percy said as he waited for Gordon to clear the branch line. It is the new signalman's first day, after all." Gordon's signal for the main line turned green. "They'll let any imbecile of a Philistine be a signalman these days, won't they?" he wheezed loudly as he pulled away. What Gordon couldn't see was Cyril working hard to get Percy off down the branch line before Toby arrived with the quarry working. He was fuming when he passed James at Kelsthorpe Road, who was pulling a slow goods train. He was in such a bad mood that he completely ignored Scarlobi at Crovan's Gate and Sir Handel on the return trip. He made it all the way back to Wellsworth without incident. Meanwhile, James was still making his way to Teignmouth with his slow goods. He had a lot of trucks to exchange at Elsbridge, and he was complaining as always. "Why does the Fat Controller always have to put me on slow goods trains?" he fumed. James was so busy complaining that he wasn't really paying attention to what he was doing. All of a sudden, there was Gordon whistling frantically at him to clear the main line. Cyril the signalman acted quickly and switched Gordon onto the empty goods siding that connected to the main line at the other end of the yard. Once again, Gordon found himself screeching to a halt at Elsbridge. Gordon remembered what had happened earlier, and his mind immediately drifted to young Cyril. "That blithering idiot of a signalman!" he shouted as James drew alongside. "That's quite enough, Gordon," a familiar stern voice said, and there, standing along with Cyril in James's cab, was the Fat Controller. "Sir, Gordon said, but wisely didn't say anything more before the Fat Controller could shush him. I don't need any excuses, Gordon, the Fat Controller said before he sighed. I would not be lying, Gordon, if I said that I wasn't cross, but I am far more disappointed. Yes, sir, Gordon said with a sullen expression. I am old enough to know better than to treat others like that just because they made a mistake. He looked over at Cyril. The way I acted was not the way I should have. I apologize for what I said. He paused briefly. I want to thank you. You saved James, my passengers, and I from a nasty collision, he said with a sense of pride creeping back into his voice. I forgive you, Gordon, Cyril said calmly. Quite right, the Fat Controller nodded in agreement. I saw you react in real time in the signal box, and I couldn't be more proud. This more than makes up for your earlier mistake this morning, and I would call your first day a success. It was an honor, sir, the young signalman replied as he walked back to his post. Gordon whistled as he headed back out onto the main line towards Knapford. The passengers, for their part, cheered Cyril for his actions. Well, all's well that ends well, right, sir? James asked in an optimistic manner. Not quite, James, the Fat Controller replied. James's expression quickly fell. Oh, he said in a disappointed manner.